You're tuned to Radio Kidnappers, the voice of Hawke's Bay. This is the program called The Wonderful World of Wardini Books, and it's our pleasure, as always, to have in the hot seat Lou from Wardini Books in Havelock North. How you going, Lou?
I'm very well, Ken. Yourself?
Good, I'm good. It's good to see you on this beautiful day as we record this program. And just before we get to our books for today, just remind our listeners, Wardini Books, you've got two stores. Where are they?
We are 16 Tomato Road in Havelock North and 44 Hastings Street, Napier.
And let's have a look. Three great books, as we mentioned. Swimming Against the...
Storm. Swimming Against the Storm by Jess Butterworth. I'm a bit of a fan of her writing. She writes for children in that really large age bracket, about 8 to 12, because some 8-year-olds are reading Lord of the Rings,
yes,
and some 12-year-olds aren't. And so she's a really good atmospheric writer. So this one's set in Louisiana. It's present day, I think, and there are a bunch of kids and their families, and they live in this sort of little town that's on the swamplands, and so the kids are all really familiar, and they know that you're supposed to dodge the crocodiles and these certain creatures, and they're all quite savvy about going out into the swamp. They get hurricanes as well, really nasty ones down there, so they know how you batten down the hatches and stay inside during those. The town used to revolve around shrimping and fishing, and then this big corporate oil company comes in and it's changing the swamps and it's doing all this and it's doing all that. And Avery and Eliza is 12 and her little sister Avery, best mates, and they're really worried that their way of life is changing. The big corporates come in and say, we're going to have to evacuate this town, there's big storms coming and the rivers are, we're looking after you, we need you to get out, but really they've done something terrible.
Yes.
So Eliza and Avery think, right, what can we do to save our town? And there's this legend of this old creature that lives in the swamp, and the little one says she's found a footprint that belongs to this big bogeyman. Yeah. And so they decide that they're going to go out in the middle of the night and try and find it, because then it'll be an endangered creature and they'll have to save the swamps, yes, and all this kind of thing. But they go out, and of course Avery goes missing. They can't flip and find her,
the bogeyman, and
all the hurricanes are coming in and everyone's frantically looking for these kids, and it all turns to custard really quickly.
Oh no.
But it's such an adventure, and you're there in the swamps with them. Is there a bogeyman? Is it just myth? Is it legend? But there's something out there. And then you're like, oh my God, they're just like leaping over crocodiles, and they're in great danger all the time, and it's very, very exciting.
And is there a bogeyman, or is that a spoiler?
That would be a spoiler. There's lots of things out in the swamp that are far more terrifying than mythical creatures, I'll tell you that much. Yeah.
And tell us all about a book called The Flat Chair.
Yeah, this is by Beth O'Leary, and it's set in London. And in lots of big cities these days, it's very expensive to live, as we know, even in New Zealand.
Yes.
So this is a thing that actually happens, is that people share not only a flat, but they share a room and they share a bed. So they don't know each other, but if someone's working a night shift, they'll sleep in that room during the day, and then they'll swap over for the day shift worker, who will come and sleep in the bed at night time. So we've got a young woman who's Tiffy, and she's a book editor actually, so it's quite nice to read about someone being in the book world, and she edits crochet books and creative books and things like that. But she's just broken up with her boyfriend, with whom she's still a little bit in love, and he's treated her quite badly, and the reader can tell that he's a complete bugger. He's just horrible. But Tiffy is at the point where she cannot really see that, so she's got to move out of their flat, and she can't afford anything, but she needs to live in London for her job. So she sees this guy, Leon, who's a palliative care nurse, and he's advertised for someone that can use his flat in the daytime because he only needs it at night times, and he doesn't need it on the weekends because he's going to go and stay with his girlfriend. He needs money because his brother's in prison and he needs to appeal this conviction, so he needs money for lawyers and stuff. So that's his story, and her story is that she needs to get out of the toxic relationship, but she can't afford to live anywhere. So as you can tell from the beginning
where it's going to go.
All right, they're going to fall in love, and you know what's going to happen in the end, and a lot of the things that you think are going to happen do happen, but it's how it gets there. They start leaving notes for each other in the daytime, and they don't meet for months and months and months and months, and you're like, well, they've got to meet at some point. And there's so much going on with the people that he looks after in the hospice, and what's going on in her life, and the creepy boyfriend does not just
go away.
And it's really funny and really sweet, and it's, if you just want a nice light read that's going to entertain you and warm your heart and make you cry a little bit, it was just delightful.
Sounds like it might have a happy ending.
Yes.
Yes.
I will let you know. It has a lovely ending.
And our last book is called The Scholar.
Ooh, this is a lot more gory, Ken. This is by Dervla McTiernan, who lives in Australia, but she's Irish, as you may suspect, and it's set mostly in Galway. And this is the second novel of hers to feature Detective Cormac Riley. You can read them in isolation. They don't follow on from one another. So in this one, there's been a dreadful hit and run. So we're just outside Galway University, where there's also a pharmaceutical company that has their laboratory. Just outside, on the road, a girl is found dead. Can't identify because she's been so badly mangled, and you think, oh, accident, someone's just hit her and run away. But no, quickly it turns out that they've hit her, turned around, come back and run over her again. So, okay, it's a murder investigation. So Cormac Riley is called to the scene, but complication number one is that he's called to the scene by his girlfriend, who is Dr. Emma Sweeney, who works at the laboratory there, who has a very dodgy, weird, shady past of her own. So is she a suspect in this murder?
She might be.
But she's the girlfriend of the bloke that's investigating it, and then there's this like big pharma link as well. Once we've identified who the dead girl is, that makes it massively more complicated. And the characters are really good. So you've got Cormac Riley, who's not well liked in Galway for various reasons, just at the moment. And then you've got D.S. Carrie O'Halloran, who's got a massive workload because they're not giving the big cases to Cormac, they're giving them all to her, just because nobody's trusting him at the moment. So she's drowning, she's got little kids and, you know, all that kind of thing. And then you've got dodgy Dr. Sweeney, who may or may not be dodgy. And just all sorts of intrigue and conspiracies going on. It was great. So I finished that last night, which is why I'm looking quite tired today. Page turner, keeps you up at night.
Yeah, what do you give it out of 10?
Oh, it's good, 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, it says on the front there, outclasses some of the genre's stalwarts. You know, so for police crime procedures, you think, oh, you know, you've got Lee Child with his renegade detective and all that kind of thing. She's really good.
She's up there with the best.
The plotting's great and the characters are spot on.
Good on you, Lou. Just remind our listeners one more time, we want to come and see you at Wardini Books, either in Havelock or in Napier. Where are you?
We are 16 Tomato Road in Havelock North and 44 Hastings Street, Napier.
As always, our pleasure. You look after yourself. Talk to you same time, same place next time.
Lovely. Cheers, Ken.